Oh, you're not sick again, are you? Your voice is a little bit rough. And hopefully my voice isn't so rough. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. Global sales, and maybe just sales, is something that we all need to do. It's an essential part of our day, whether it's to our family, including children or better halves or other components of whoever your family is, to our neighbor, to our neighbors, and to certainly from this perspective today is our company and people who are investors and invested in what we're doing, the change that we're making in the world. We want other people to be part of that. There's nobody better that I know than Charles Bernard on the topic of understanding why people buy. He knows so much about it, he wrote a book about it. He also has not only known about it and lived it and been successful with it, he's incorporated technology through his business Calavia to be able to incorporate artificial intelligence into the sales process well before people imagined that that could happen. It's now happening all over, and Charles was on the cutting edge, continues to be on the leading edge in that area. So we thought today we would have mainly a conversation between Charles and I. And when I say conversation, really it's just asking a question of Charles and let him go. But then for all of you in the audience, let's listen, let's learn and digest what Charles is saying, and then certainly have comments and questions as we go. We imagine this would be a little bit shorter of a Globinar than normal, so we had targeted something like 30 minutes, and I've probably spoken far too long already to keep it within 30 minutes. But if you're okay, we'll kind of target it as a little bit of a shorter Globinar. But we did think that there are a couple things happening right now in the world that we should address on the sales side. And Charles, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for all the things that you do. How are you viewing the world today, and in particular, how is it impacting the way you're thinking about sales, or is sales what it's always been? It is what it is, and it will be tomorrow and the next day. How are you viewing that?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting me to talk. I see some familiar faces. Michael, it's been a while since we spoke. Good to see you. Uh, Elegant as ever, and Crumb, I see you too. The way I look at it, I'll tell you a quick story. Maybe that's a way to kind of open it up. I'd love to get some feedback. So I'm in another organization that Doug is very familiar with called Vistage. And it's a group of CEOs and trusted advisors that meets monthly, and we process issues. It's voluntary, and each member gets an opportunity to put an issue on the table. So my meeting was Tuesday. It's hosted by one of our very generous members, CBiz. A nice conference room. We're all sitting around, and we had good attendance. There was probably about 15 people. And I had put an issue on the table that even with all the years that I've been involved in selling and running companies, et cetera, I really wanted to get some input from people I really trust. And I asked, how can I be a better listener? And I won't get into why I put that question on, although I can tell you that it's been something I've been thinking about, because it does relate to sales. Um, but I got some amazing feedback, and it gave me some insights, and it goes right to where Doug was asking, like, what's going on in the world? What's going on? How does that impact us individually and me, et cetera? And what I came away from the advice I got is, why don't I listen the way I want to listen? And I think I came away with this fundamental thing that I've been doing for many years. And I wonder if our politicians are doing it and our leaders are doing it. And most of us are doing it when we're trying to sell something, like sell an idea or sell a product or sell a service. And that is having an agenda. And what I realized is that I've always, for many years, had this idea that I must go to a meeting with an agenda, that I can't go to a meeting and let the other person talk freely and understand and discover and then figure out where I want to go, that I must have an agenda before the meeting with a purpose and an outcome and all the steps that are going to get me to that outcome. And I think that's happening more and more today, that people in high places, people in leadership, salespeople in our everyday uh, way of doing business, we as sellers are arriving with an agenda. And one of the things that people said to me in this meeting was, there's a difference between having a goal and having an agenda. Like if you want to have an outcome and let things organically uh, develop to get to that outcome, that's different than if you have an agenda. And one guy gave me an example, and he said, in his world, sometimes you can accomplish that goal in one meeting, and sometimes you can accomplish that goal in three meetings. But if you have an agenda that you must accomplish that goal in the first meeting, you're really trying to force transactions. And that was a big takeaway for me. And I think what I'm noticing is that the world has become more and more transaction focused. Like, what's in it for me? What can I get? How do I get it? And how do I get it as quickly as possible? And the moment I find myself doing that, and the moment I see leaders doing that, it's almost like the other person doesn't matter. It's almost like the rest of the people, they matter to some extent, but there isn't that flexibility to discover. And we have a guy who runs, we call him the psychologist for family-owned businesses. He's been around a long time. He's very successful, and he advises companies that are family-owned. And he said to me that one of his, and he's very successful, one of the things that contributes to his success is in the first one and sometimes two meetings, he talks about personality. Like, where did you grow up? What do you like? What, why did you name the company that name? Tell me about your family. Do you have kids? So it seems to me like a lot of that is old school because I know some of the people, maybe Doug and me, is sort of closer in age than some other people. Um, it used to be that was almost fundamental that you needed to get to know the person. And so I feel today we're being pressured, I call it pressure to perform. There's this enormous pressure to perform. And that's why I think people are bringing agendas to meetings. And I don't have to name names in politics. The US is going through a lot of stuff. The world is going through a lot of stuff. But my assertion is if you trace a through line from me all the way up to the president, all the people in that chain, I bet you dollars to donuts are forcing an agenda. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And so I think we could really maybe do ourselves and buyers, people, because if I'm selling my country on an idea as a politician, if I'm selling as a CEO a direction for the company as an idea, I'm still selling. What's going to help people buy in? And I think if people think this is your agenda, not my agenda, or there's parts of my agenda in there, but mostly it's your agenda, I think that immediately starts to cause anxiety because now if you're an employee or you're a salesperson, are you challenging the person for having that agenda? And so that's kind of bit of a long-winded response to your question, Doug. Do you have any follow-ups?
I feel like I got hit by the head with a two by four, like to wake up. I love that idea. That I definitely see that among everyone. I don't know, is everybody's busier, and the fact that we moved into that world that you just described is sad. Um, it goes to potentially thinking about the old days in a reminiscent way and finding a way to weave some of those really key concepts in. How do you weave that in? How have you reacted to that, or have you had enough time to react to that epiphany to be able to adjust how you're coming into meetings?
Um, well, first of all, I'd love to hear if I may, because I'm a big responder to my audience. Is it okay, Doug, if we ask anyone to unmute and jump in or send something in the chat?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
I'd love to like I said a lot of stuff and it seems to have resonated with Doug, but I really want to hear, what's your spin on what I said? Like, is it true? Is it totally like I have no idea what you're talking about? Or do you have any thoughts about how that might be showing up and anything you want to add to that to further the discussion?
Yeah. That resonates with all of you.
I see a lot of note takers. Uh, so is the fact that you're not muting meaning you don't understand a word I said, or you're busy reading your email, or why am I here? I mean, I'm just curious. Yeah, Michael.
I think, well, we just enjoyed what you said. But if you, if you want me to give you some, I know, Charles, you're a big learner, which is great. And I'd like you to take the compliment. I think it shows that you're starting to understand mastery of your area because it shows a couple of things. The first is it's what's called the second journey. There's a writer called Richard Raw, and he says the first journey of life is all about what is my form? How can I make money? Who do I like? What am I all about? And we create this form. It's like making a mug, and some people that's their life. But the second journey is you start to empty it and go, I don't want that anymore. That doesn't motivate me anymore. And you're saying all the things that show you're on the second journey, which is like I've been there and done all that. I'm not defined by that success anymore. I'm bothered about the second thing. So you're approaching it with that kind of wisdom. But what I found with people is it's like a circle. If you meet people on the first bit of the circle, they're like Doug said, they're going to want to do the transaction. No, we need an agenda. No, you're being old-fashioned. But if you can guide them through it and you take them to where you're coming to, it will really resonate. So it really resonates with me. And I don't think we're the same age. And I think also our human concepts of time and age are very short. So what's a few thousand years if it really works and if it's something that really, the benefits us. So no, I think you're absolutely asking all the right questions because you're not sat on what used to work or what felt comfortable. You're being brave to step outside and say, maybe last year or maybe 10 years ago, but not so much now, or this feels more real to me, or this feels of higher value. And I've been there myself, and I feel like what you're saying is definitely resonate with me. So no, I think a lot of people are hopefully just sat there and hopefully agree.
Thank you, Michael. Um, so, Doug, now I can kind of piggyback on what Michael was saying because the other thing is, and I appreciate and I agree 100%, it's not an age thing. I don't think it's an age thing. And you just validated that, which to me, like you said, I'm a learner. Like if you'd have said, Charles, that's an old school thing, we don't do that anymore, I'd learn, okay, maybe that's really worth taking away. But I didn't hear that. I heard, no, this is spot on. And maybe it's spot on not because Charles is right, but maybe it's spot on because it's true for all of us that this is a universal thing, right? It's not an age thing. It's not necessarily a cultural thing. Although, Doug, I will say there is a certain type of element in culture that drives more of what I said before, like at the UAEs. I've been doing a lot of talking with businesses in the United Arab Emirates. And there is this sort of cultural way of doing business there where it's almost required, and I know, Doug, you have a lot of experience here, that you gain trust. It's almost like a before we do business with you, I need to trust you as a person. I need to know you as a person. I need to feel good about you. And then, business. But here in the US, I think we can learn from that a little bit because, especially in New York, you've probably all heard the expression a New York minute, right? It's kind of like, here's my name, here's my business. Got a lead for me? Can you do business with me right now? And I think we need to step back and ask ourselves, why do we do that? And the other thing, Michael, that I got from my discussion with my fellow CEOs on Tuesday, and to Doug's question, like what opened up, what have I been thinking about, is something someone else said. And he said, what's interesting for me, Charles, is that I feel I'm not a good listener because I'm driven by anxiety to want to say something. And sometimes it's good anxiety and sometimes it's bad anxiety. So the good anxiety is I want to jump in and say something, kind of cut you off while you're speaking because I'm not listening anymore because I have something really good to tell you. Like I really want a contribution. I want to make a contribution. And I want to tell you what it is. And again, watch our politicians, watch the people on cable news, watch the people on TV. Everyone's cutting everybody off because they think what they have to say is more important or they really want to get it out there. And that's kind of more of the bad side of like not listening, but the fundamental, whether it's good that you cut someone off and want to give advice or bad that you don't believe what they're saying is important, therefore you've got to say your piece. Either way, the driver of that is some anxiety. And I just feel, and I think this is where Doug was going and inviting me to come here. It's like, Charles, do you think the world is anxious right now about buying and selling? And I say, yeah, I really do. I really think the world is very anxious, not only about buying and selling, but a lot of things. But one of the reasons I'm passionate about buying and selling is I think it's fundamental. It's not, it's human. Like I said before, we're selling ideas, we're buying into ideas, we're not doing it with currency and cash necessarily, but I'm giving you my time. I'm giving you my attention. I'm giving you my ideas. So there is this sort of trading, buying and selling. And what seems to get in the way is this anxiety. And then, my chair, some of you may have heard of him, Mark Taylor, he's pretty well known in Vistage. He said, Charles, do you meditate? And I said, probably not as much as I should. And he said, well, maybe it's a good idea to kind of, you know, stop and return to your center, right? Meaning, because that's a big part of meditating. Like just if you drift off and you get anxious, like come back to your center, which is all calm. And then another guy in my group said, these are all fundamental things that I think we forget. He said, do you breathe? Like, do you stop and relax and actually breathe? And if you breathe, maybe you can listen better. And maybe if you breathe, you can take the time to sell an idea when the person's ready. And again, watch our politicians, watch our people on the TV. Are they breathing? Do they look like I see some politicians, it looks like they're about to suffocate because they're like, I mean, I won't name names, but you know what I'm talking about. So again, that to me is some of the things that have been buzzing around in my head in terms of it's not just me, Doug. I think when I really get connected to something fundamental like buying and selling, I'm connected to all of us. Like it's not just me. I think we're all there. And so if you recognize that a buyer is you and you are the buyer, it's a lot different than if I'm separate and I'm trying to push something on you. Um, and I think my most fundamental, when people say you've got a lot of experience in training salespeople and talking about buying and selling, just the way you introduced me, Doug, and I appreciate the comments and the compliments. But I think my fundamental takeaway for this group, and it's not something you can be told how to do, and maybe this would change your perspective forever. But my fundamental one-liner, if you want to be amazing at selling, is be the buyer. Be the buyer. People raise their hand, they go, well, how do you do that? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. It's not a do, it's a be. Well, how do I be that? I don't know. How do you be that? So you have to really to really get good at selling, you have to be good at buying, and you have to understand what buying is. And you have to understand the pressures that the buyer is under. You have to understand the pressure they have to perform. Because my agenda as a salesperson is 90%, maybe even more, 99% driven by a pressure to perform, pressure from my manager, pressure if I don't sell something, I won't have money. And if I don't have money, I can't pay my bills. And if I don't pay my bills, I'll be homeless. Pressure to perform stops me being the buyer. I'm being the seller. And the moment I'm being the seller, I'm literally disconnected from the other person. And again, look at our politicians, look at our world, look at all the people that are speaking to us on cable TV, on news channels. Are they under pressure to perform? I say they are. Every single one of them is under pressure to perform. Are they thinking about the American people? Are they thinking about, as a CEO, my employees? Well, when I'm thinking about pressure to perform, I'm not thinking about the people. I'm thinking about my survival. So I think a lot of what's going on, Doug, right now is very survival driven. And for some reason, pressure has become the norm. And I think we need more people in the world to tell us that pressure is not normal. It's okay to have some pressure, but it's not fundamental. Pressure to measure things and set targets and all of that stuff is okay, providing it's in a context of, am I adding value? Am I contributing? So I'll stop because I said a lot, and I know we're winding down because we said we'd be at about half an hour. But again, I'd love to hear some reactions, or either in the chat, or if you want to unmute and jump in, or Doug, if you have a follow-up question, I'm happy to hear it.
I just have one more question, and then let's wrap up with any additional comments from folks. The be the buyer certainly to me is the big takeaway here. Be the buyer. That's profound in its simplicity, and it goes a lot to what you described in terms of how we should approach others in every way. I love that. So that's really something that I'm getting my brain around. It reminds me a little bit of, I think it might have been in a John Maxwell book where he talks about goals versus systems. That everybody has a goal, and as a Yankee fan, I feel hopeless. Like unlike years before, I just feel like the chemistry of the owner and the manager and the general manager is hopeless. Even they're in first place, I just don't see it working. There's a chemistry problem with that, and so the system isn't working. They have a goal, like every other team, to win the World Series. In fact, every sports team has the same goal, to win. Every Olympic athlete, I'm going to win. The difference is the system. And so I'm wondering, in sales, everybody has the goal of sales, I guess, coming into a meeting, although now you're having me rethink that. Maybe that's not the goal in a meeting. There's a different goal that we should have in the meeting or overall. but certainly I think it does relate to a system and how we approach it. I don't think going back 30, 50 years makes any sense. I think the kindness of people in those days, I think of my father-in-law, fought in World War II as a Marine, island to island, and came back and was able to handle all of that in his head somehow, and was such a kind man and cared so much about people at a deep level that's hard to see today. Not that it doesn't exist, it just it feels like that's a days gone by. So what happened in the past doesn't work anymore because we're in a new time. But there's something there, some new system that we should be thinking about for ourselves going forward. And so that was my question: is there a system that we should be thinking about for each of us, for all of us, that versus goals that would be helpful in the situation that we're talking about here, and that is being more successful in sales?
Well, it's a bit of a challenge in 30 seconds, but I'll do my best. Yes, I think first philosophy is have a system, um, because a system grounds you. Like you might hear me and think, well, Charles has all these pie in the sky ideas. I wonder if that's how he sells. Absolutely, in that way, yes, but many ways, no. I have a system. If you saw my system, most of you would probably think I was some kind of a nut job because I have everything measured to the second in many cases. I have my outreach and I've made all these discoveries about my dashboard and all the things that I do to keep me on track. And I call that grounding. So I need a system to ground me. So I'm not up here pie in the sky with all these great ideas. I got to make those implementable. It's like, you have a body. It's got arms, legs, eyes, nose, mouth. They all have a purpose and it's a system. So I think having a system is critical. Um, the way we operate, we always say there are 5 areas to your system: prospecting, selling, support system, team. The first two are obvious: prospecting to generate leads, selling to convert leads, to close business. Support is critical. Most people don't have that in their system, and that is, what support do you need? You can't do it alone. How's the rest of the organization supporting you? And that's a dashboard, a coach, people holding you accountable. Um, so that support system is what's in your tech stack, your CRM, your HubSpot, Salesforce, Gong, Zoom Info, Apollo, Sales Navigator. All of these things work together to that's your part of your system. Most people don't use that system effectively, by the way. And team is also important because that's your value proposition. You as a team, you're a member of a team if you're with a company. Even if you're a company of one, a, what team, and people get very confused when I say that. What I'm talking about is, do you have a value proposition? Do you know what it is? Can you communicate it? Can you communicate it to a buyer who would care about that value proposition? Most people are busy. It's funny, without a value proposition and without value and a mission and a vision, you don't really have a goal. And what I see today, back to the big picture, is work becomes the goal. That's how we live today in the West. Work is the goal. And I say maybe we should really examine that we should think, what are we working on behalf of? And what is our goal? So that system is important to have in place because without it, you drift off, right? It's like if you were in outer space and you went out of the space capsule, if you didn't have a rope or a thing to hold you, you drift off in space. So you need that system to keep you connected to all those 5 parts. So I know we went over, but that's kind of my quick response to having a system and what kind of a system to start thinking about.
Thank you, and sorry for the long-winded question and giving you not enough time to answer such a fundamentally important question. So we did talk about cutting a little bit short today. So thank you. Would you and not to put you on the spot, but would you be open to digging deeper into the system part of this? It feels like there's something really essential here that I'm not sure we've really covered effectively until today, and I think there's a lot more there. Would you be open to setting up another time to go deeper?
Of course, yeah, because those are really more frameworks, like you said, Doug. I think if we want to get into how does that all work together and what do you actually need to execute inside of those frameworks, it'd be my pleasure to help.
Thanks everybody for joining today. Uh, Good luck with your selling. Reach out as you can for any help that you need. Definitely know Charles. Charles is just an outstanding leader and obviously knows a lot about sales. And be the buyer. I leave you with that. Be the buyer. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Charles. It was very nice to hear you. Very, very nice. I sent you a LinkedIn connection some days ago, but you're not there so much. No?
I'll look. It goes in batches. Like
Yeah,
thank you for reminding me. I have to look at my
understand
LinkedIn.
that.
Hi, Paula. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
There's that new member in Portugal. She's like, she joined just a few days ago. It was like, I'd like to meet. And so I did tell her today that I'd get you guys connected. So I don't think I did yet. So
No, you didn't.
I
Do
think I
that,
have it on
please.
my. Speaking of systems, I love HubSpot. I did like HubSpot in the beginning because I thought it was too complicated, but now I love it because I love that task feature. It's like I'm too busy. I introduce Paula to that new member, and in a few days, and so in a few days it comes up, and I do it instead of a bunch of post-it notes, which is a system, but it's not a very.
Sometimes a physical system is not bad. I still get attached to a physical agenda. I have an info one, but I have a paper one because I really need the paper in my hands.
Whatever works, Paula.
Yeah, whatever it works. Yeah.
I need to rethink agendas. I think I need to do something different about that. So I'm going to research that.
Yeah. You can
thanks,
say
everybody.
that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, stay sharp.